Just as letters make up words and words make up sentences, so in music, notes make up motifs and motifs make up phrases. A phrase is the musical equivalent of the sentence. A musical phrase can stand alone as a complete thought or idea. We'll talk more about this when we delve into melodic phrases. Also, a phrase is typically 4 measures in length. It can be larger or smaller, but it cannot be smaller than 2 measures. We will now take a look at how we can combine motifs to make up a phrase. In this particular example, we are going to use 2 different motifs. Now, either of these musical ideas by themselves would not be enough to make a sentence since they are much too short. Each is only 3 notes long. A very common and useful tool for creating phrases is that of repetition. If we begin our phrase by repeating one of the motifs above, we accomplish 2 things. First, we introduce the motif to the listener, letting them become familiar with it. Second, we establish this particular motif as the primary motif, or PM. We must be careful not to simply endlessly repeat a primary motif, since the music would become monotonous and the listener would soon tire of hearing it. This is where motif number 2 comes into play. Let's repeat our secondary motif so that it's 4 beats in length, just as the primary motif is 4 beats in length. If we insert this measure in between measures containing our primary motif, it will provide variety, and also establish the other motif as the secondary motif. We now have a 4-measure rhythmic phrase made up of 2 different motifs. This is a very simple example of how motifs can be combined to create phrases. There are countless other combinations we could have come up with. Once our primary and secondary motifs have been firmly established, we can then begin to develop different rhythmic phrases using these same motifs. What we have done here is cut our primary motif into 2 halves and intermixed them with the secondary motif, which we kept intact. As you can see, this is a little more complex, but a little more interesting. This new rhythmic phrase contains both the element of uniformity, the original motifs, and the element of variety. The possibilities are endless. That's the wonderful thing about music. You can use your imagination and be as creative as you want while still maintaining order. This lesson was just an introduction to rhythmic phrases. We will go into more depth as we proceed through the course.